Want to know what's going on in China? Want to know more about the Chinese way of life and what the Chinese people are passionate about? Want to travel throughout this fascinating country and learn about its amazing history and culture? Heartbeat, helping you discover a true taste of China and feel the pulse of the Chinese nation.
Welcome to this special edition of Heartbeat. I'm Man Ling. For most people living in China's rural areas, dreams of traveling abroad seem out of reach. But in a village in East China's Anhui province, people have been immigrating to Europe in search of work since the late 1970s. At present, about 70% of the villagers from Huaitang are working in European countries. Now, what has migration brought to this remote mountain village? Let's find out with our reporter Xiaohua.
The sound of children reading aloud livens up an otherwise quiet and remote mountain village. This is Huaitang in the southern part of Anhui province. Huaitang Primary School is the only school in the village. Like most schools located in the country's impoverished mountain villages, the three-story school building looks shabby from the outside, with some of the windows and doors broken. The school has only 20 students, all studying in the same 40-square-meter classroom. One particular 8-year-old boy demands the attention of everyone looking in. He keeps talking, asking questions, and even bargains with teachers about his homework. His name is Hu Renxing. Unlike some of his classmates, he was born in Italy and went to school there up until last year. Now he lives with his grandparents in the village. But his 5-year-old sister is still living in Italy with Renxing's parents. Renxing's teacher, Ling Zhiyun, is impressed by this kid.
Hu Renxing has a very active mind. He often bargains with me when I assign homework to them. Unlike other typical Chinese children who are afraid of teachers and not particularly close to teachers, Hu Renxing thinks he's equal with me and treats me like a friend. I think this is due to the Western mode of education he received in Italy. For example, when I talk with him about his homework, he likes to hold on to my shoulder like I'm his buddy.
Unlike their counterparts in the cities, from the age of 4, pupils in rural areas learn how to make their own way home and do not need to be picked up by parents after school. Renxing has got used to this and even enjoys his time going home alone after school. In contrast to living in big Chinese cities where people barely know their own neighbors, here in this little village, everyone is familiar with one another. So, on his way back home, this curious and talkative boy often stops to talk to other children, neighbors, and even the village's cleaning lady, something he simply couldn't do in Italy. Renxing quite enjoys wandering around and exploring this little village. Every day around 5 p.m., Hu Renxing's grandfather, Hu Yongyang, finishes his daily routine of farming and gardening and then prepares for his grandson to return from school. Yongyang and his wife were part of the first generation of migrants to work in Italy. After returning home from Italy, Yongyang spent a year building his new house.
It cost me about 800,000 yuan.
That is about $129,000.
I designed it myself, combining both Chinese and Italian architectural styles.
Upon walking into this 3-story villa, the first thing that leaps out is an elaborate wine cabinet, which displays all kinds of wine from different countries, a rare scene you would expect to see in China's remote countryside. The kitchen is also in Western style and fitted with an oven. It features all the regular appliances you would see in a European house. In the living room, there is a coffee table. When guests visit, Yongyang would treat them with tea or coffee, depending on their preference. Sometimes he even offers villagers who've never been abroad a taste of the foreign drink and snacks he has brought back. After living in Italy for almost 20 years, Yongyang's dietary habits have changed somewhat.
I adapted to local life in Italy very quickly. Now, even though my wife and I are back in China, we still often cook Italian dishes, such as pasta and a grilled steak. Besides changing my eating habits, I became tidier. You know, usually houses in the countryside are a bit messy and dirty. People like to throw garbage around carelessly. But you can see that my house is very clean. This has become a living habit.
On the wall are photos that he and his children took in Italy and other European countries. Looking at the first photo he took in Rome in 1994, Yongyang recalls the tough old days that he experienced.
I had to work for 16 hours every day when I first arrived in Italy in order to survive. And I lived in a very small, dark attic without lights. I still remember the first time my eldest son returned home from Italy was 12 years later. He had no money to come back. But at that time, I didn't feel pain or sadness, because day and night, all I was thinking about was making money so that I could send it back to my family and let them live a better life. It was this faith that sustained me through my hardships. But now, the younger generation usually thinks it's too hard to hang in there. They've never experienced the hard times we went through.
Now, Yongyang has his own leather processing factory in Italy, which brings him millions of yuan or hundreds of thousands of dollars each year in income. But he has already handed the running of the factory over to his 2 sons and 1 daughter, who are now in Italy. The garden in front of the house is where Hu Yongyang spends most of his time every day. He has planted all kinds of flowers and fruit trees in his garden and keeps fish in a little pond. After struggling to survive for almost 20 years overseas, this is the time for Yongyang to rest and enjoy his retirement at home. Opposite the new house is the old house that the family lived in before. It looks shabby and run down, especially in contrast to the new abode. But Hu Yongyang doesn't have any plans to tear it down anytime soon. In fact, he plans to keep it so that his offspring can know that their parents and grandparents endured tough times in order to give them the life they have today. Every weekday around 5:30 p.m., Hu Yongyang would stand in his garden waiting for his grandson to come home from school. By this time, the grandpa has already got the writing desk, milk, and chocolate ready for the grandson's arrival. Despite being back in China for a year, little Renxing's favorite food is still Italian snacks. He always looks forward to his parents bringing these snacks back when they come home to visit.
I like Italian canned fish, polenta, and sausage pizza.
When Renxing arrives home after school, Yongyang sits with his grandson to help him with his homework. After that, the grandpa helps his grandson practice Italian, just in case he starts to forget. It's easy for a young child to learn another language, but it's also easy for that child to forget one too. Hu Yongyang is teaching his grandson different greetings for different times of the day. 65-year-old Yongyang can speak very fluent Italian and is knowledgeable about Italian culture. But when he first arrived in Italy, he didn't know a single Italian word.
I bought a bilingual book on Italian learning. So I looked at the Chinese translation and learned the Italian pronunciation word by word. It was very difficult in the very beginning, with nobody to teach you.
Compared to other villages in China, Huaitang seems quieter and more modernized. About 90% of its villagers are elderly people and children. Aside from typical ancient Hui-style architecture, many houses are of European style, featuring Roman marble pillars and spires. Some villas even have small artificial waterfalls and swimming pools in the yard. Clearly, this village is wealthier than the majority of villages scattered across China. Men and women, young and old, can be seen wearing gold rings, bracelets, and necklaces, a clear sign of the village's wealth. Walking down the road, you'll often find elderly people reading the Bible in their yards. And not far away from the school, there's a Christian church funded by the village migrants in Europe. Around 70% of Huaitang's 2,400 villagers are now working or living in Europe. Wang Jialin, the village head, explains the rare trend since the late 1970s, which is seldom seen in other Chinese villages.
Working in Europe allows you to make good money. They can earn roughly over 1,000 euros each month. Back then, our village didn't have enough land for all the people, so they chose to make a living in Europe, mainly in Italy, Spain, France, and the Netherlands. The major industries they work in include processing, catering, wholesale, and supermarket retail.
After more than 30 years of hard work, many Huaitang immigrants in Europe have become millionaires and have brought back millions of euros each year, getting their hometown a nickname of China's Euro Village. In Huaitang, almost everyone can reel off the exchange rate of RMB against the euro without hesitation. The overall education level of Huaitang village used to be very low. Before immigrating to Europe, most of the villagers were farmers who hadn't even had the chance to attend middle school. But now, almost all of them can speak fluent Italian, Spanish, or French through self-study. Some have even become interpreters overseas. Aside from language, Western values and the Western style of living have had an impact on the villagers. In Huaitang, you'll notice courteous manners that you might not see in typical Chinese rural areas. For example, vehicles will often stop to let pedestrians cross the road. This is something that even people in China's big cities fail to do when approaching zebra crossings. Besides an improvement in living standards, a change in eating habits, appreciation of Western etiquette, and the acquisition of foreign languages, working in Europe has also brought one villager in Huaitang, a Spanish wife. But villagers have divided views about marrying a foreigner.
One of the Wangs married a foreign wife. She is very tall and has light skin. Of course, it's great to have a foreign wife. At the very least, marrying a local person while working abroad can help one's career and ease one's burdens.
I wouldn't like my son to marry a foreign wife. I don't understand foreign languages, and she doesn't understand Chinese. We cannot communicate.
Despite living in Italy for about 20 years, Hu Yongyang still holds very conservative views. He believes Western values have led to his fellow villagers being more open, such as accepting cross-cultural marriages. But at the same time, this has also had an impact on traditional Chinese values and the family structure.
Many young couples have encountered relationship troubles after being separated for many years, and many of them divorced right after they arrived in foreign countries. When suddenly exposed to such an open world, some forget their responsibilities to the family and children. I think the Western values of marriage have had an impact upon them.
In fact, Huaitang village itself was formed by immigrants. In the 1960s, people from Wenzhou, Zhejiang province immigrated to Huaitang because it had more land for farming. In Wenzhou tradition, locals never marry people from other places in China, let alone other countries. For Hu Yongyang's generation, the men only married women from Wenzhou. But now, as people have become more open-minded, it's even acceptable to marry a foreign wife. Obviously, this small village is becoming more westernized. Some villagers have already taken foreign nationalities, but Hu Yongyang and his family insist upon maintaining their Chinese nationality and bringing their grandchildren back to China to study.
I said to my son, on the one hand, raising a child in the foreign country costs much more than raising that child here. On the other, I insisted that as a Chinese citizen, they should learn the Chinese language, customs, and traditions. This is very important. If they grow up in Italy, they may know nothing about China and our culture. They will just have a Chinese face. But inside, they are foreigners. Their mindset and ideology will be completely westernized. They'll have no love for their hometown. So I suggest my sons take their children to Italy when they grow older.
In Huaitang, many families who are living abroad hold the same idea as Hu Yongyang. They all hope to send their children back to China to learn about Chinese customs and pick up the language. Furthermore, many parents have no time to look after their kids whilst earning money abroad. This helps to explain why Huaitang Primary School, with only 20 students, has 9 students who were born in European countries. Lin Zhiyun, one of the only 2 teachers at Huaitang Primary School, says it's not easy when these kids first join the class.
They exhibited elements of social withdrawal. They found it difficult to communicate with local children and teachers. They rarely talked. After all, they had grown up in a different environment. But now it's getting better once they have become familiar with one another.
But how would being separated from one's parents for so many years affect a child's growth? Hu Yongyang doesn't think there is something to worry about.
My daughter-in-law is a little worried that the relationship between her and her son would become more distant if the boy lives with me for too long. But I think there's no need to worry about this. Children always love their parents the most, no matter what. It's impossible for this not to be the case.
However, as someone who stays with the children every day, Lin Zhiyun, the teacher, expresses her concerns.
Some children don't even see their parents once a year. Some parents come back to visit only once every 2 or 3 years. So the emotional contact between the children and their parents is almost zero. For example, one student often says, "I have no time to talk to you. I need to go to school now," when his parents call home. He wasn't even bothered to pick up the phone. Of course, the children miss their parents. But as soon as they realize no matter how much they miss them, their parents won't come back, they become indifferent. And every time parents leave, during the first few days, it's easy to tell the child's mood is extremely low. There's always unlimited amount of money to make, but the time you spend with your kids is limited.
People always have different views regarding these so-called left-behind children. But did they ever ask what their children think?
I want to go to Italy to be with them, but I also want to be with my grandparents. If I go, I'll take my grandparents with me.
I want to go, but I'm afraid to, because my parents told me that children who go to Spain are all locked up by bad people.
Parents tell such white lies in order to make the separation easier. The children want to live with their parents, but if they live without them for too long, the word parents becomes just a word without any real meaning. By the time parents want to get closer to their kids, they're essentially strangers to their children. But in today's Huaitang village, children are not the only group being left behind. Elderly people are also being left behind to fend for themselves. Almost all the labor force is out in foreign countries. They hire housemaids to take care of the elderly, build nice houses for their elderly parents, and transfer a lot of money to their bank accounts. But most of them only come back to visit their parents once a year. It's not uncommon in Huaitang for an elderly lady to share a 10-bedroom villa with just her maid. Hu Yongyang says he is still able to take care of himself and his grandson, but he hopes that his children will come back and stay in China when he is too old to take care of himself. He expressed his concern that Huaitang village will disappear one day if no one wants to come back.
In the future, only a few people will stay in the village. Now you can see only old people stay here. Our generations are very nostalgic, but I'm not sure whether the next generation wants to come back. I always hold the idea that Chinese traditions must be passed down to the following generations. But if my grandson or great-grandson finds an Italian wife and chooses to live abroad, generation by generation, my descendants will be Italian instead of Chinese, with no love for their true homeland. The village will be empty. It's a very serious problem.
Dr. Zheng Zhenzhen, a professor at the Institute of Population and Labor Economics at Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, holds a positive view for the future.
I haven't seen many villages disappear because of migration in China. There are no such records or statistics, but I do know that some rural villages in Europe or America disappeared because their development lagged behind and couldn't attract young people. Actually, the practice of immigrating to foreign countries has a long history in China. About 600 years ago, during the Ming and Song dynasties, a large number of people living in coastal regions such as Fujian and Guangdong provinces moved to Southeast Asia. So there are many other villages similar to Huaitang in those provinces, but they still exist and are developing well. So I think the local government should think about it and find some ways to attract those people back.
That is absolutely true with Huaitang. Xiang Yulan, head of the Overseas Chinese Affairs Office in Shexiang County, where Huaitang village is located, said the investment has made a great contribution to the local economic growth and boosting employment.
For example, the well-known Zheng family from Huaitang already came back to invest in our county, including industries of manufacturing, tourism, real estate, and hotel. Many people want to come back. China's changing every day. I often hear them say that every time they come back, they find their hometown different. In many places, our hardware facilities are as good as Western countries. So our county's fast growth is also very attractive to them.
As twilight draws near, this small mountain village sounds particularly quiet, except for the echoes of a few children still outside playing. Eight-year-old Hu Renxing is enjoying phone conversation with his parents and 5-year-old sister in Italy. The 6-hour time differences between the two places exert no obstacles for family time. Outside, it's rare to see young people or even middle-aged people walking around the village. But on the very edge of Huaitang, for sale signs of a European-style luxury housing estate are very eye-catching.
Thank you, Xiaohua. And that actually brings us to the end of today's show. But there's always more online. Check us out on the web at newsplusradio.cn for more information and other fascinating reports and features about China. Thanks for joining us on Heartbeat. Until next week, I'm Man Ling. Bye for now.